Goyer. She's a homeschool veteran with 25 years of experience, and she's a mother of 10. Enter to win this homeschool resource bundle, including books and videos, by clicking Word Fan Club at thewordfm.com, then click Contests. Once again, enter to win a homeschool resource bundle by finding the contest page at thewordfm.com. What's right, what's up next on The Word? 100.7 FM.
I can't wait for what's next. Even with higher stroke risk due to atrial fibrillation, irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem, Eliquis, the Apixaban tablets, reduces stroke risk. It's the #1 cardiologist prescribed blood thinner. Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without talking to your doctor, as this may increase your risk of stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or have antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or unusual bruising, or if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. It may increase your bleeding risk if you take medicines, such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS. Remember, we're called to be salt and light. This is thewordfm.com. Download our apps or find us at oneplace.com. KWRD, Highland Village, KLTY, HD3, Arlington, Dallas, Fort Worth.
Healthy by Nature is back to his heritage station, The Word, 100.7 FM. Join host Marty Whittaker Saturday mornings at 8 as she brings you the best in the natural health field with well-qualified guests and questions that make complex topics easy to understand. With over 4 decades of experience as a nutrition counselor and certified clinical.
Oops. I have to turn my radio off. I think 90.5 will do it.
Long-range barrages reaching all the way toward Tel Aviv and the suburbs of Tel Aviv. A lot of those rockets were intercepted. A lot of the rockets were short-range rockets hitting here in the immediate vicinity of the Gaza Strip. Soldiers from the historic Golani brigades got a visit from the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today, who told them that they've fought like lions in the past and will fight like lions. And airstrikes continue to pound Gaza City and the Gaza Strip, with the Israelis say they got another high-value target. Jihad Mashan is his name. He's said to be head of the Hamas National Security Forces.
The conflict is extending into its 13th day. Republican lawmakers called out far-left Democrats for their refusal to condemn Hamas as the war continues, according to Fox News. Republican Representative Mike Lawler of New York described members of the squad as a disgraceful bunch on Fox News today. Lawler specifically took issue with Democrat Representative Rashida Tlaib of Michigan for repeating a lie that Israel was responsible for bombing a hospital in Gaza.
This vile, disgusting lie that Israel bombed a hospital and offering no remorse, despite the fact that the administration said it was a lie, shows what a disgusting person she is. She has no business serving in the House of Representatives.
A pro-Palestinian event in Houston, Texas next week was canceled by a Hilton hotel due to security concerns. Tlaib was scheduled to be a speaker. One of our nation's leaders is calling for investigations of college student groups here in the U.S. protesting on campuses in support of the terror group Hamas. Here's AFN's Bronson Woodruff with the report.
Since the terror attacks in Israel on October 7th, anti-Semitic groups have been protesting on college campuses in different parts of the United States. In an interview this week on Washington Watch, United States Senator Josh Hawley made it very clear that he opposes the messages coming from these groups on college campuses. He's now introduced a resolution.
What it says is that the Senate condemns this anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, pro-jihadist rhetoric that is coming from all of these student groups on American campuses. And I can't believe, Tony, that American university leaders won't step up and condemn this. We need to speak with moral clarity. What is happening is evil.
He said he's concerned there may be some connection between these college groups and terrorists like Hamas.
Where is the funding for these so-called student groups coming from? Is it coming from terrorist groups, or are these student groups collecting money and sending it to terrorist groups? That's illegal. I think we deserve to know, given the extraordinary pro-violence, pro-genocide rhetoric that is coming out of these groups on these campuses.
Senator Hawley also tied the issue to our southern border, where terrorists are undoubtedly coming into our country under the radar, undetected, and under the guise of searching for a better life in the United States.
The idea that our southern border is totally open, that you have people already, Tony, record high numbers of people who have links to the terrorist database have crossed over the border, and those are the ones we know about.
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
Thousands of information technology workers contracting with U.S. companies have for years secretly sent millions of dollars of their wages to North Korea for use in its ballistic missile program, the FBI and Department of Justice said. The Justice Department said yesterday that IT workers dispatched and contracted by North Korea to work remotely with companies in St. Louis and elsewhere in the U.S. have been using false identities to get the jobs. The money they earned was funneled to North Korea for a weapons program, according to the FBI. More than 343,000 people left California for another state last year, the highest number of any U.S. state. The number of Californians who became Texans dropped slightly last year, but some of that slack was picked up by Arizona and Florida. The flow of Californians to Texas has marked the largest state-to-state movement in the U.S. for the past 2 years and was evident in bumper stickers on Texans' vehicles that read, "Don't California my Texas." That's all our time for now. We certainly appreciate your listening. See AFN.net for more. For American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton.
The LGBT movement isn't new. Since 1968, it's been making its way into the Christian church, and now we're seeing parts of the church starting to affirm the quote-unquote gay Christian lifestyle. How did we get here? In the book Dangerous Affirmation, author M.D. Perkins sheds light on how Christians are being lured away from God's truth and calls us to faithfulness to God's design. You can get the ebook version of Dangerous Affirmation today at resources.afa.net.
We need to make sure that we stand up for the unborn, that we say we're going to love people that are homosexual, we're going to love them, and if you don't tell them what they're doing is damaging them, you're not loving them.
Welcome to In Grace with Jim Scudder Jr. He is the senior pastor of Quentin Road Baptist Church in Lake Zurich, Illinois, and the president of Day Spring Bible College in Mundelein, Illinois.
Welcome back to In Grace. Today we are studying, is the Old Testament obsolete? Of course, you know, if you've listened to In Grace and any of my sermons, that you know I don't believe it is. I believe it's actually very important, very relevant, and very foundational to our Christian faith. And today we're going to continue to talk from Genesis 6 about the days of Noah and how wicked the world was. We were talking yesterday about the oldest man, Methuselah, and how old he lived and how old Adam lived, and even Noah lived a long time. But in those times, it was a wicked world. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk about the distance from creation to the time of Noah, the distance from creation to the flood, just so we can start to understand biblical history and the time frame of biblical history. And we'll be doing that today and talking about how wicked the world was and really how I feel the world is about like it was then. And so these are important topics, and I'm glad that you're listening today to In Grace. Right before we get into today's message, I'm so excited that we're going to come to you. We have an event called Gather in Grace. We're going to be coming to South Dakota at the end of this month. Mitchell, South Dakota. We'll be at the Corn Palace. And those of you in Arizona, we're going to be in the Phoenix area in February. I have a free ticket to these events. We're going to have music, speaking, food, and fellowship. And again, it's all free. I'd like to meet you. My wife and I will be there, of course, and our team. And boy, it would be so exciting to meet you. So get your free ticket at our website, ingraceradio.com. Once you get to the website, ingraceradio.com, click on Gather in Grace, and then choose which of the two locations you'll come to. I've been told that people from the Dakotas will drive a long way to come to the events, because you pretty much have to drive a long way anywhere you go. And most of you know exactly where the Corn Palace is. I've never been there, but they all tell me it's pretty cool. So I can't wait to see those of you from the Dakotas and those of you from Arizona. Again, ingraceradio.com. Click on Gather in Grace. And then also, for those of you that listen to In Grace, let me thank you for listening by sending you a free bookmark, The Lord is My Shepherd. Go to our website, ingraceradio.com, and get your free bookmark, The Lord is My Shepherd. How long was it from the time of creation to the time of Noah? Well, that's about 1,000 years. And if you want to try to understand the biblical timelines, the time from creation to Noah's birth is a little over 1,000 years. Okay? So kind of get that in your head. It's a nice even number. Creation to Noah is about 1,000 years. And then the time from creation to the flood was around 1,500 years. Okay, it's actually 1656, but 1,500 is a little easier to remember. So 1,000 years to Noah, to his birth, and then another 500 years to the flood. So 1,500 years from creation to the flood. And these are general numbers, but I'm pretty confident of them based on the genealogies that we find here in Genesis and other parts of the Bible. And then the time from creation to Abraham is around 2,000 years. Okay? So you can kind of get a little bit of an idea in your mind on the timeline of all of these events. From the time of creation to the time of Jesus was around 4,000 years. And the time of creation till now is a little over 6,000 years. You say, boy, the world tells us something really different, right? How long has the earth been around according to evolution? Millions and millions of years. Okay? Well, there's a big disparity there. Why do they say that? Well, they don't want to accept the Bible. They don't want to talk about a flood. But they see all the geology, so they know that something happened. But they would rather say that all they have is time. So they just add time. They add time. So geology is why they add all that time. And it doesn't say that in the Bible. The genealogies are pretty clear in the Bible. The earth is not over 10,000 years old. And that's actually about the age of humans that they find in archaeology. It's exactly what the Bible says. Okay, so let's look at Genesis 6, verse 1. It came to pass when men began to multiply in the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. Okay, so we have now, be fruitful and multiply. They're now filling the earth. This is before the flood. This is from Adam on through Seth and on and all the other children that Adam and Eve had. The sons of God, verse 2, saw the daughters of men. So there's been a lot of controversy and speculation about this. And I'm going to explain it more later. But who are the sons of God? Who are the daughters of men? I'm just going to tell you very simply what I think about this. This isn't some like weird angels, fallen angels cohabiting with humans. I don't see that at all. I think that's crazy. But who are the sons of men? I think this is really simple. The godly descendants of Seth. Okay? The godly line. Some of that godly line decided to go after the daughters of men. Who are the daughters of men? I think this is simply the wicked line of Cain. Okay? So anytime you have godly people taking a wife of ungodly people, you have a problem, right? This is what happened to Israel, and I'll show you a verse there in a second. Go back to Genesis 6:2. The sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. Okay? They didn't say, oh, they were godly, or they made good choices, or they were fair. They looked pretty, and they took them wives of all that they choose. Okay, now, this was Israel's downfall. When God brought Israel into the land, look at Psalm 106:34, he told them to not marry the people that were pagan, because you're never going to bring them up, they're going to bring you down. That's why the Bible says to not be unequally yoked. You need to marry someone that knows God and is serving God. Okay? Teenagers, young people, go slow on that. Be careful. Get advice. Get advice. Psalm 106:34, they did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them. God told them what to do. God knew that these nations were wicked and they couldn't be left to pollute the nation of Israel, but they didn't listen. And it said that they were, in verse 35, mingled among the heathen and learned their works. And they served their idols, which was a snare unto them. Yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils. This is so sad. The Canaanites were known to worship Baal, and they had a sacrifice to Molech, and it was an offering of an infant
to the gods. And Israel got into that. Can you believe that? Even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. They didn't listen to God. That's what happened in the time of Seth and his descendants, and right before Noah. And this is what happened in Israel, and this is what's happening today. And it's sad that our world is falling apart. It was in Colorado a few years ago. They said there was an elk that was shot. It was left on the side of the road, and some people pulled over, and more people started to assemble, and they created this vigil for this elk. They were holding hands, and they were singing Amazing Grace. They were eulogizing an elk. On that same day in the United States, 4,000 innocent babies were murdered in their mother's womb. The Bible actually says something about this. That they changed the truth of God into a lie. They worshiped and served the creature more than the creator. That's what's happening today. You can look that up in Romans 1:25. Their marriages were corrupted. The godly married the ungodly. And they had this falling away of their convictions and the way that they were living. They were getting so bad that God had to do something. If God didn't do something, I think what was going to happen in that world, in that wicked world of Noah, was that there was going to be no one left. There's this violent spiral happening. And there would be no one left to bring about the Messiah. That's why God purged the world with the flood. We'll be talking a lot more about the flood, and the flood is the big answer to geology. Okay, the flood answers all of the geologic questions that we have. Genesis 6:3, and the Lord said, my spirit is not always strive with man, for that he is flesh, and his days shall be 120. Now you say, well, that means that we should be 120. No, that's how much time they had left. This is the amount of time before God was going to judge the world. Verse 4. There were giants in the earth. This is Nephilim. Okay? And that's where some confusion has come in. Were these like physically really huge, tall people? I mean, there was Goliath, right? There were tall people. But I honestly don't think these Nephilim these giants were necessarily giant in size. I think this is, it's understood in the verse here. Let's continue to read. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. Again, I believe that's just simply the godly line started to marry the wicked line. And they bare children to them, the same became mighty men. So the Nephilim, the giants in the earth, were mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. You know what I think that means? I think that means that those that lived after the flood, and they were still living pretty long, not as long as before the flood, but they were still living pretty long. In other words, Shem, the son of Noah, who actually through Shem came Abraham and Jesus, he would have still been alive at the time of Abraham. Isn't that interesting? He lived really long, and Abraham didn't live as long. So these people that were living really, really long, because they hadn't had this second genetic bottleneck at Tower of Babel, they were revered. Like, how can they be living so long? I think that's these men of renown. These Nephilim, these giants, were just giant men because of the lifespan that they were living. I think it's that simple. Genesis 6:5 says, and God saw, here it is, the wickedness of man was great. How wicked was the earth? Remember, Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, so will the days of the Son of Man's return be. Now, I think Jesus was speaking of, in two ways there. Jesus was speaking of the unexpectedness of the return of Christ, and that people weren't ready. In the time of Noah, they were marrying, they were partying, they weren't listening, and then destruction came. So it's the suddenness of the days of Noah, of the judgment, but it's also the wickedness of the day, I think, is going to match the wickedness of the day of the return of the Lord. Now, why do I say that? Because it says it right here in verse 5, it says, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart, these are the people that were alive in the time of Noah before the flood, was only evil continually.
Step into the captivating world of ancient history and discover the inspiring story of David, the Shepherd King. As a token of his gratitude for your amazing support, Jim Scudder Jr. is thrilled to offer you an exclusive, beautifully crafted Psalm 23 bookmark, absolutely free. This elegant keepsake is a symbol of our appreciation for your generosity. And when you give a gift of $35 or more, you'll receive not just one, but 5 Psalm 23 bookmarks and the engaging DVD series, Discover Hidden Israel 4, all about David, the Shepherd King. When you give a generous gift of $250 or more, you will also receive a limited edition 16 by 20 canvas print portraying David, the Shepherd King. To claim these remarkable gifts, call 800-78-GRACE, go to ingraceradio.com, or write to InGrace, P.O. Box 9, Lake Zurich, Illinois, 60047. Again, that's 800-78-GRACE, or ingraceradio.com.
In Romans 1:26, God gave them up. God gave them up unto vile affections. They've had these evil thoughts continually. That's all they're thinking about. So God says, okay, my hands are off. Any guidance that I was giving you, any helps and hints that I was giving you, now you're on your own. God gave them up to their vile affections. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. What is that? That's lesbianism, folks. How do I know that? Well, look at the next verse. In Romans 1:27, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the women, burn in their lust one toward another. That's homosexuality. Men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves the recompense of their error, which was meet. Our world is almost exactly as the world was in the time of Noah. And it's sad, isn't it? It was in 1992, Hugh Hefner was asked by the New York Times of what he was the proudest. And he said that I changed attitudes toward sex, that nice people can live together now, that I decontaminated the notion of premarital sex. He said, that gave me great satisfaction. I'm sure his mind has been changed. And it is sad, the state of our world today, when we're telling kindergartners that they can be a boy or a girl. Even if that were true, why would we tell kindergartners that? But it is not true, because God made male and female. He made 2 genders, 2 sexes, complementary but different. Different. And if there's confusion